now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
At our website, dmsbroadcasting.ky.
Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Morning, Sandy. How are you?
Morning. Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good. How's your day so far?
So far, so good.
All right. So what are the headlines this morning for us?
Well, travel time. Let a little old man out of quarantine.
Oh, I heard that.
What happened?
Yes,
told him he was negative.
But he wasn't. He was positive.
Yeah.
And where did that person end up?
Well, he was so anxious to visit his family. He's just had heart surgery and all that kind of stuff. So he was really, I know, poor thing, right? Really anxious to visit his son, the son's wife, and the son's grandbaby, which would be his great grand.
Wait, so the guy had heart surgery and now he has COVID? That's the first thing I think about. Like, is he okay?
Yeah. Well, hopefully he was vaccinated. I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I'm hoping he was for his sake.
And so now what? They're all in quarantine and just pending further tests?
Yeah. So him
or
and
how long did it take to catch it though? Or like catch on to?
How long was he on?
They didn't specify, and my sources were not 100% sure of the time frame, but it was enough time for him to go visit family. I mean,
that's a bummer.
It wasn't like 10 minutes he was taking to get dressed, and then they were like, "Oh no, don't go anywhere."
The bummer part is that he thought he was good to go because he was released.
Exactly. I mean, this is totally not his fault, right?
Not his fault
for
at all.
sure.
Wow.
So it kind of undermines our confidence in travel time, which I don't know when the borders reopen exactly what their role would be, but I think they need to honestly get it together.
Yeah, I mean they are doing an awful lot though. I mean, obviously you want zero mistakes, right?
Yeah.
It's such an important thing that you can't really have. You got to be 100%.
We've known about a few epic mistakes that make you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So like
wow.
I said, I mean, they send out a press release saying, oh, don't worry about it. Nobody in the public is really at risk. Instead of them saying, here's what happened. It's not going to happen again because we put these particular measures in place. I feel like they're always just quick to say, oh, the public isn't at risk. Oh, we've already completed contact tracing in all of 5 minutes and everybody's fine. Like, it really appears to me to be brushing the dirt under the carpet and it's mounting. So I would really like to hear a little bit more in terms of, how these mistakes are being made. Because as you said, Blake, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. That's very, very true. But when you're in public health and you have a really important role to play, such as travel time right now, those types of mistakes, we need to understand how is it that they're happening. Are people mixing up samples? Are, the person who called couldn't read? Like, give me something that I can latch onto to say, okay, this is fixable, as opposed to two literal little sentence that said, don't worry about it. We got this. Because I'm not personally feeling like you got this. So I'd like to hear a bit more. I'm
sure that we'll.
Yeah. And of course we heard it. We heard about it and we reached out to them and we waited and waited and waited. And then, they eventually sent out a press release to everyone. And the response was just less than, it was kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
In other news, PCR testing schedule launches today for Georgetown Primary. So if you're a Georgetown Primary parent, you've got to really, really pay attention because you have now come to the end of your 14-day quarantine period. And if you are not a primary contact of a known positive case, apparently optional PCR testing is available for you today at the Lion Center. So you're encouraged to go in. Now, this is quite interesting because yesterday we also heard that additional cases have come out, additional transmission cases have come out of those clusters that we were already aware of. So a total of 5 cases, in fact, now linked to what already existed in the community. 3 of those were in isolation at home with known positive cases at Georgetown Primary. And they've been part of the tracking program. So hopefully they've been tracking them properly. And then the other 2 members, I'm assuming they're not, oh, wait a minute. I think I've got that reversed the other way. Yes. So the 3 is the first community outbreak. The 2 are part of the Georgetown Primary School cluster. Sorry about that. So, kind of interesting that even at this late stage in the game that, you're still having positive pop up.
But it's not mandatory testing.
Yeah, what's the optional? You should be, if you quarantine, you got to take a test.
If you've been quarantined, when you want to take a test and be like,
I would think you'd want to, but part of me thinks
no, if you're vaccinated, because then again, there's the whole issue of if you're a vaccinated person and you're showing no signs, then you're going to be forced back into quarantine, and so it's a matter of the trust system on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. I mean, I would have thought that it was mandatory, just like taking the first one was mandatory and being in isolation was mandatory. So that is weird, but that somebody has made that decision that's way above my pay grade, obviously pay grade. We'll have to see how that works out for them. But yes, so people can go to Georgetown Primary today. They can go to Lion Center today to start testing, and then tomorrow will be the cases that are associated with the known positive cases, and those persons are not really permitted to go anywhere. It says that public health will contact those households directly to advise them of how their at-home testing will work out. So they're going to test those individuals at home. So
Yeah, that's going to be tough. 14 days and just thrown at you. Your life put on hold. You had no idea, and then you have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it kind of put a lot of people in a bit of a pickle because some of those individuals, like me, I don't ever have 14 days worth of groceries in my fridge. Like I don't think anybody does.
No.
So now you're having to beg people for help and try to figure it out. We were fortunate enough on this program to be able to help a number of households to kind of give them groceries, snack for the kids, whatever they needed. They just sent us a list and we got it sorted out for them. So
great.
Yeah, it's it's a challenging time for everyone. Out of Bermuda, a bit of an interesting story is that the health minister there were warning people against these home remedies. They had 10 deaths over the weekend, and she was warning people to stop taking home remedies. Apparently, they're self-medicating, and I don't know what home remedies they're really taking, but stuff that's, I guess, on social media and WhatsApp. And they're waiting too long to go to the doctor. So she did say, listen, folks, you've got to ensure that once you test positive for COVID, or if you feel, that you're coming down with something, you've got to make that a priority and go and see a physician.
Yeah.
Stop pretending to be a doctor.
A lot of misinformation on the interwebs.
Ivermectin is prescribed by vets. Don't use it.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty crazy. But she's discouraging people from doing that, which is probably a very good idea. Listen to the professionals, folks. And this morning, we're really, really excited to have a special guest in the program coming up at the 8 o'clock hour. We're going to be speaking with someone who actually is part of the Georgetown primary group, and they tested positive for COVID. And this mom wants to share her experience with us. So that's pretty cool. She's going to be coming on with the Honorable Kenneth Bryan.
She's okay though?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and it's people be very interested to hear the details of her story because I think it's pretty interesting.
All right, we'll catch CMR right now on YouTube and Facebook, and we'll talk to you tomorrow for more headlines.
Sounds wonderful.
All right,
have a good day, guys.
You too. Aaron, what you got coming up?
All right, folks. Buenos dias. Good morning. Wagwan. Hope everyone is okay. Give me 1 second here. What was yesterday's date? Yesterday was the 27th. You guys have been sending me all these videos of a particular individual back out at the glass house. I saw someone just told me to fix my pendant. Thank you. Y'all are paying attention to everything. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yesterday, someone sent me a photo of another photo. It was actually a video of Lavelle out there on the pole. Like she was literally dancing with, is that a flagpole? I feel like it's a flagpole in front of the government admin building. And yeah, weird is not even the word for that. It's just bizarre. So I listen, if the woman needs professional help, I guess, can no one force her to get professional help? That seems to be the thing. It's unfortunate because she clearly needs the help of some sort. And it's an embarrassing situation to have someone gyrating in front of the government building like she does. Now, despite her maybe needing some sort of psychological help, it's also very apparent that she is aware of what she needs to do to draw attention to herself, which is interesting in and of itself. So she knows the shorter the shorts, and the more she gyrates and the higher the heels, the more attention she's going to get. I'm a bit torn. Do we not talk about her at all and give her no attention and just ice it out? Will that make her stop? It doesn't seem to work because we've been low key, not having much to say about her until Friday when she's blowing up all over social media. But yesterday somebody sent me her on the pole and I was just like, oh my God, what the heck is this now? Girl, sort yourself out. It's just not a good look. She claims to be a Christian, and people find it so incredibly ironic that a Christian would even dress that way, much less gyrate and do all the other stuff. That just doesn't bode well with the Christian message. I don't know. Although the Bible probably doesn't say anything about gyrating and wearing short shorts and heels on a public street specifically, but surely that goes to one's even appearance of being a certain, I don't even know what the word is. It's just crazy. It really is. But most people would not consider that behavior to be Christian-like. I don't know. What do y'all think? I mean, you guys tell me. You're the Christian experts, not really me. I'm a sinner, just trying to find my way. Diamond Princess, good morning. Michelle, good morning. James, joining us from Canada. What's the weather like there? Good to see you. Irvlyn is here. Thankful as always. Miss Joy from Texas. Rosemary, thank you. Wee Wee's got it locked in. Alice, she's like, I'm here and present. Olivia, good morning. Jackie, beautiful Daisy, beautiful Erica, buenos dias. Vernita, thank you so much. We got Emma, Felicia. Larry says, play the No No song by Ringo. Which song is that? No No. Good morning, Miss Brenda. She says, I keep telling y'all that travel time is a joke. I'm going to give them some credit. I'm not going to say they're a complete joke because I know they got their hands full, but they've been making a few missteps that has me concerned. To be honest. Siobhan, Larry. So this latest COVID positive, they said nobody in the public is at risk. I felt like maybe they got to him early on, like by the time he got to his son's house and so on, he probably spent maybe half an hour with them or whatever, because now they're in isolation. And so, then they realized their mistake. But the question remains, how did it happen? This press release that they sent out in response to a query about this breach just doesn't fit the bill for me. Like, I'm just not particularly happy with what they have said because it doesn't say anything, basically. So you accidentally release a positive man, and all you say is, this is what they said, a COVID-19 positive traveler at the end of their quarantine period on September the 19th, 2021 was inadvertently released from quarantine. However, was contacted, they said, immediately and returned to isolation. Well, it wasn't immediately if you had time to go to visit somebody now. Come on now. That's not immediately. Immediately is, I told you you're not negative, you're not positive. And then within 5 minutes, in other words, you didn't have time to put on clothes, get dressed, get in a car and drive anywhere to visit anybody. That would be immediate. If you have time to go visit your son and his wife and so on, that's not quite so immediate. So that's a little bit of time has gone by. And it says that he was returned to isolation. So my understanding is, of course, they don't tell us these details because we know exactly who it is. Poor little fella. Him and the helper had to go back into isolation. And then his son's daughter, and she works, thank God, she didn't visit and then go back to work because she works in a building that has hundreds of employees and is open to the public. But they were at home with the grandbaby. And this was actually on a Sunday, and he came by to visit them. Their grandbaby, which would be his great grand, all now have to be in isolation. So they said that there's no public concern in this case as a positive traveler, and their contacts were immediately advised and isolated. So yes, because he only went to visit the family, the household of his, his son. Poor guy, missing everyone and just wanted to get out, after he'd been quarantined for a while. They haven't said if he was vaccinated. There's so many questions that come out of this that they simply have not answered. And they've come under a bit of scrutiny. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, where people are people have a lot of questions. So, Jerry, good morning. She says, I think the testing should have been mandatory, not optional. I agree with that. And I don't know whose decision it was to make it optional. So again, and especially in light of, although they're saying that, it's people who would have already tested positive, like those households are still having positives pop up. So that's interesting. And yes, I'm going to ask a few questions. I don't know who made that decision, but I agree with you, Jerry. Buenos dias, Miss Alba. Carol says, if you're making these decisions, open the borders, bring in lateral flow tests we do at home, and let us get on with living. And I think that the lateral flow tests are definitely coming. We will be able to find out about that in short order. So, in fact, Carol, let me just ask a question of the powers that be. I do know that this government is pro lateral flow test, using them in some form or another. So let me see. So let me see what I can find out. All right, my dear. Miss Brenda says travel times need a proper overhaul and to be trained. I'm not sure who's responsible for that, but it's totally failed. I keep wondering who's advising them. I could share some horror stories about them. Child. Miss Brenda, apparently you're not the only one with horror stories about travel time. Someone actually took to trying to remember who this was now. Someone actually took to social media and posted about their experiences. And trust me when I tell you, it was it was not a good situation. So yeah, what a hot mess. Trying to remember who actually sent me that. Let me just see if I can find it. Somebody resent it to me last night because I was looking for it, because I do want to discuss some of the issues, even if they are perceived issues with travel time. They are issues nonetheless that clearly need to be addressed. Oh yes, here it is. Someone posted, it was quite a situation. They said that my family of four has currently been placed in isolation for 15 days with no communication from public health since the initial isolation order phone call on Tuesday morning. So we need to dissect these situations, because ultimately, again, mistakes are clearly being made. And if we don't understand how they're dealing with rectifying those, then we got a problem. So I was having a conversation recently with someone who was talking about politicians who, feel like they're perfect and they don't make any mistakes and that sort of thing. And I kind of had a thought about it. And I chuckled to myself because I'm like, why would anyone seek to believe that they're perfect? Or not even, I certainly don't think that they believe that, but why would they try to make other people believe that they're perfect? Sometimes you just got to own up to, listen, I made a mistake. I'm flawed. It is what it is. And, I'm going to do better. That's the key, right? Nobody's looking for perfection from any of us. I hope not. It's just a matter of when someone does make a misstep, you have confidence in their ability to recover from that situation. That's the key in life for me. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Well, speaking about the key in life, give me 1 second. Let me read our daily because so many of you enjoyed that yesterday. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. We kicked those off during COVID, and then I feel like I've just been slacking on that front. So now we are back to reading them because I love them. They really make you think. And that for me is so incredibly important. What is this now? Sir John A. Cumber. Woo! Y'all want some breaking news this morning? Do you want some breaking news? I just asked y'all a question. Let me see your hands raised. Who wants to hear something first in CMR? Let me see who's with me. Keisha, are you paying attention? Louis, good morning. Good morning. Evelyn says, where her child? Can't they help? Whose child? Whose child are we talking about? Good morning, Miss Brenda again. Shout out to Caraco from Travel Time. Miss Beulah, anybody want some breaking news? I did ask a question. Let me go down. Let me go all the way down now. I'm still behind my messages. Good morning, Sam. Morning, Carmelie. Brenda's giving Cara a shout out. Damaris is watching us from New York. Anne-Marie, how are you? Zelda. Oh, Evelyn, are we speaking about what's her name? All right, so y'all said give it to us. Yes, Evelyn's got her hand raised. Trisha says yes. Lizette says I'm waiting on the hot news. Get your tea ready, Robert. It's tea time. This one's coming hot off the press. Now look at this hot mess. Lord Jehovah. Here we go. Go tell your friends you heard it in CMR first. Dear parents and guardians of 2 Lawrence, I'm guessing that's a classroom. Today, a student in your child's class brought a knife to school and showed it to other students. Ay, ay, ay. Here, primary school, no, sir. Whoa. Okay. The teacher was immediately notified and the knife was confiscated. At no time were any students in danger. Appropriate actions and consequences were applied to the respective student. You see, this is what listen. Administrators, civil servants, chief officers, Travel Time, all y'all running the show. Can you kindly just let us know what you mean by that? Can you just spell it out? Is it too much to ask? What appropriate action was taken? You need to say the child was suspended. The child is getting counseling, like something. They just sugarcoat everything. Scott, good morning. Brenda, we'll get back to them here in a second because this is another hot mess that's popping off this morning. Ooh, honey child, this tea's like sizzling hot. Miss Gina. Oh, we get to know at least a little bit about what she did with the kids. Thank you, Jesus. Miss Gina, our school counselor, spoke with the class to ensure all students had an opportunity to speak about the facts of the incident and their feelings about it. The students said they felt safe at school. Really? I know well. They felt safe at school. My poor little tweetums. Ay. They don't know the danger they're probably in. Please help us keep our school community safe by checking your child's backpack daily to ensure only school appropriate items are in them. Should you have any questions regarding this incident, do not hesitate to contact us. Wow. Al Mendoza Hides, Deputy KS1, Sir John A. Cumber Primary School. So do explain to me, folks, how does this happen? Parents, We can't blame the school now for your children showing up with a knife in their backpack. So who is willing to, Michelle, good morning. Thank you very much. Missouri in the house. Hello, Mr. Blair. Anybody care to explain to me how a child, primary school, year 2? How old would year 2 be? They start at what, 6? So year 2 would be like a 7, 8-year-old maybe. How does a 7, 8-year-old take a knife to school? I'm thinking about this. Now I know kids, listen, I got a 5-year-old trying to crawl up on the counters in the kitchen. And I have to say, no, 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 no. That's not acceptable behavior. First of all, we don't sit on counters and we don't crawl up on the countertops and all this kind of stuff. But you know, they are incredibly curious. They're 5 and 6. No, they're not so young. They'd be a little bit older because 5 is kindergarten age. And then is year 1 6? Or does government school start 5 as year 1? I don't know. Y'all tell me. So your child gets a hold of a knife and puts it in their backpack. So someone says year 2 is 6-year-old. Yes, that's what I thought. What a hot mess. I'm not sure I understand how this is even possible. Every day that my 5-year-old comes home, her little, well, most days she doesn't carry a backpack. She just has a little lunch kit with her snacks and lunch and whatever. But don't you empty the lunch kits and backpack and go through it? See what homework your children have, what they need to do. Pull all that stuff out. And then in the morning, who's helping them pack? Are they packing themselves? Is that what's going on here? Good morning, Vasiana. How are you? Miss Brenda says there's problems at all of these schools. Regular inspections need to be made. Presence of authority needs to be made more frequently. And in some cases, plant them there. It's kind of sad that we need to even think about presence of authority at an elementary school, but have we gotten there, folks? Oh my gosh, I am flabbergasted. What a hot mess. We have a guest coming up at the 8 o'clock hour. So year 2 is 6. Yes, thank you. 6 to 7 years old. Oh my God. So here you know, more of the scoop. Oh my God. Tracy, what is going on? So my sources are sharing that it's a female student, no less. That's not comforting. And she told people that she wanted to kill somebody. A 6-year-old? What does a 6-year-old know about wanting to kill anybody? Oh my God. Ay, ay, ay. Y'all, I'm just flabbergasted by this one this morning. This takes the cake. Good morning, Sue. Parents are not checking these bags, very sadly, she says. Rosemary says these kids are watching too much TV. Well, I don't know if they're watching TV or somehow they have violence in the home or what this is. But yeah, this is not a good look. Not at all. Why do I hear drilling? Who's drilling in the neighborhood? But yeah, this is not good. Lord have mercy. What are we gonna do? Wow. Yesterday, good morning, Peter. How are you? Kara says, what did they find in her lunch kit? A knife. Good morning, Kara. So we're actually going to put this story up here in a second. I've got to do it myself because, as you guys know, Renee had her baby. Congratulations to Renee, by the way. She is doing great. Her and the baby are fine. She did have the baby early, about 34 weeks. They could not allow her to go to full term. She's our correspondent reporter, so she writes for us. She covers mostly regional news, but a lot of times she's holding down the fort on some of the local stuff when I'm like really, really busy. So big shout out to Renee. I'm going to hold down the fort while she's doing her mommy stuff. So she had a 6-pound baby at 34 weeks. I'm like, girl, it's a good thing you didn't go full term, because that baby was shooting for 9+ pounds. So they decided to take him because she was having preeclampsia. And it's so ironic that on last week, Friday, we were talking right here in this program about some of the difficulties that women go through during their pregnancy. Patricia says maybe she was being bullied, but still not acceptable. And it may be violence in the home. Like, we don't know. But I really, really hope that the powers that be are getting some professional counseling for the child, not just the students who are exposed to it. And I'm glad that they were offered it for sure. But, I have a family member who was a teacher at the primary school level. And she has always said to me, Sandy, first grade, second grade, we can look at the children that 20 years later are going to be on drugs and in Northward. She said, I can tell you with a 98% accuracy who those children are, because we see the homes that they're coming from and we see the environment that they're coming from. Remember the young man in Canada last week that was sentenced to life for killing a couple members of some biker gang or something in Canada, Hell's Angels? This person remembers him when she was teaching and said, yeah, he was in one of my years. And I knew it. I'm not shocked by this. This is precisely where his life was going. I was like, Ross. And if it can be predicted with that level of accuracy, can we not intervene and try to help these children? I know it's difficult, because what is happening really is you're going into situations with years of dysfunctionality. And, trying to address multi-generational drug abuse, violence, and other issues. But for me, the hardest part of any situation is always identifying the problem. And if we can identify problem children way in advance of them becoming problem children, my God, we need a program to help them. Everton says, good morning. I think they should start to hold parents responsible. That should be a given. For whatever their kids do at school or anywhere, we can. An expert, the teacher's supposed to be the mother, the father, the police officers, turn around, and being a teacher, it's too much responsibility on the teachers. So Everton is saying that, listen, the teachers have their hands full. And I agree with that too, especially when you have a classroom of 25, 30 kids. It's a lot, because even if you have only 5 of those children that are problem children, you have to remember, folks, that means that you're going to be spending 80% of your time dealing with problem children, and that takes you away from everybody else in the classroom. And how fair is that to them? Omeria says, Sandy, it's like my African gray parrot repeats everything he hears one say. Yes, child. Children are like that. They're going to soak it all in. Cara says a poor child needs help. Yep. Miss Brenna says some of these teachers help them to hell. You're saying the teachers are the problem? So Patricia agrees. She says yes, but there are teachers that are saying that there are teachers that say some people are not going to amount to anything, and then they become extremely successful. So teachers are not always right. Well, yes, for sure. And I personally have experience in that regard. But I think that those individuals are far and few. They're not going to be the norm. So, and listen, we're not saying that people are saying that in order to make people look bad. all I'm saying is if they can be identified at such an early age, right? Not to be talking about the kids, but if it's that easy to identify who the problem children will be, then in my mind, it should be fairly easy to know who needs immediate and what's the word I'm looking for? Comprehensive intervention. Like it really shouldn't be that hard to figure that part out. Ay. Well, while we're waiting on the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, and his special guest to come on the program, we're going to play a couple of videos for you. So again, we have a guest who's coming on who's tested positive for COVID, which is a little bit crazy. Don't forget, folks, that today is Tuesday, which means that we will actually have our special CMR COVID Spotlight series. This is sort of episode 3 coming up this evening. And we've got a good lineup of individuals for you folks. You're going to want to make sure that you tune into this. Some real experts. I mean, you guys have no clue how hard Kevin has worked. To line up all of these guests for you. We've got everything from an epidemiologist that came on last week. Thursday, we've got a virologist coming. Listen, these are the experts that you guys have been asking for. So tune in to take advantage of their expert knowledge. Kevin has also been doing a video series with people, Caymanians living abroad. So let's have a look at one of those right now. They're living life in a somewhat normal fashion. COVID normal, the new normal.
Hello, so we are now with Martina Watler, who happens to be my cousin, and she's here in Florida with me. But and I let everyone kind of start off with the same question, Martina, and the question is so easy. Who you for?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Martina Watler. My father is Mark Watler, and my mom is Christina Watler.
Gotcha. So you recently came up to Florida, first year college student over at University of South Florida, USF. So you're right in my area. We know COVID here is a lot. There's a lot of cases.
Yes.
What I want you to kind of, share some of your experiences so far. You just came from Cayman where there was no COVID. Now you got, hear about some of the community cases, but you now came to a state, an area, living in an area where there's a lot of cases going on. What's that like for you?
Honestly, before I left Cayman, I was very nervous to come to the States, although I was keen just because, the in-person classes would be a new atmosphere, a new environment. It was very scary because I assumed that it would be very hectic here at university with COVID going on. Coming from a much smaller bubble, everyone is so protected. People that come in and out of the country is very controlled. And a majority of the country did have vaccines, but over here it is quite different because a lot of people don't really care about, the safety of others at times. Some people here are quite selfish, so not many people wear masks, but just taking your own safety precautions to protect the community that you're in is very important. Even though many other people are not doing it, I think it's very important to just play your role. So it is quite different. COVID here is on a much larger scale, but there are still things that you can do to prevent or avoid attaining, COVID.
So you came here fully vaccinated, so you had that level of protection. But when you came here and you came fully vaccinated, that there's, about half the population here fully vaccinated. Did that really make you nervous knowing that there's so much more virus here? Did that stop you from really going out and about enjoying your college experience?
So to be honest, not as much as I thought it would have. In Cayman, I was more afraid of coming to America just because I said, transmission of the virus is so much easier because not many people here have the vaccine, and it's just so much harder to control your, I guess, how much you're exposed to the virus because you never know who around you has it. But from my personal experience, I would say I don't necessarily restrict myself from going off campus, but I only go off campus once every other week just because there is a lot of work to do. So, a lot of us stay in the library, in the dorms. It's just me and my three closer friends. So we don't necessarily mix with other people. So it's not as difficult, I guess, just in my particular situation, just because I'm not used to going out all the time, especially in a foreign country. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I necessarily restrict myself, but I do take the safety precautions, which is very important, especially staying away from people who don't wear masks in particular.
And Cayman's going to be opening its borders at some point in time, not so distant future. And there's a lot of people that are really afraid when that happens. What would be your message to them?
So personally, of course, I understand why many people back home would not want the borders to be open or why they're so afraid of it. But inevitably life will have to continue. We can't necessarily be overly afraid of the virus. We have to learn how to overcome it as a community. So I would just say back home, try your best to stay safe, take your safety precautions. Government should be putting regulations and guidelines in place for tourists and locals to abide by, just so that the community is safe and that the transmission isn't so, I guess, wide or overly growing. But I guess the last thing that you would want to do as a country is to go back in lockdown and to have to readjust to remote life again. So just make sure that if you have any symptoms, just get tested, make sure you play your part in the community. If you need to quarantine, if you need to do what you need to do, just do it for the safety of your community and protect those around you. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me, Martina. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, big shout out there, folks, to Kevin Watler and Martina Watler. We appreciate her coming on and interviewing with Kevin to talk a little bit about how Caymanians are living abroad. It's an entire series that we're doing. So yes, the 24th was Friday. Okay, folks. So Miss Alice says that she agrees with Everton, and Darlene agrees as well that teachers are not responsible for raising your children. You are. A King says 80% is actually all the admin and planning that teachers have to do in order to keep their job. 20% is that they have to focus on students and the baggage they carry with them into the classroom. It's so incredibly sad because we've talked about this before. There are key indicators for children, and the more of them that they have, the more likely they are to end up, in jail and being, unfortunately, really dysfunctional as adults. And we know what those key markers are. And again, if we can identify them, to me, that's half the battle right there, is identification. So, Zelda says the A in PAC stands for accountability. What will the health minister do to keep her manifesto promise to ensure accountability of this travel Cayman breach when they were released into community positive traveler from quarantine? Wasn't this positive traveler vaccinated? We don't know if he was vaccinated. I'm going to try to find that out. I'm leaning towards he probably was, given the fact that he had to travel abroad and actually receive treatment. A lot of these hospitals now, especially if you're coming in from overseas, they're not going to take you if you're not vaccinated. But I don't want to say that he was 100%. I'm going to go ahead and verify that, right? But thank you very, very much. And that's a discussion that at some point we have to have. The political arm of government trying to control civil servants has never worked. The civil servants are on a mission of their own sometimes, and it just doesn't line up. And I find that with a lot of civil servants, there is no level of accountability. So isn't that sad? Oh, yeah. But again, Kevin is going to be on tonight. I'm just checking to see if the minister is ready. Minister Brian, give me a thumbs up if you are ready to come on. We'll return back to this conversation with the child. Good morning, Ms. Mona. It's just a sad situation that now we're hearing that on Friday, apparently a child took a knife to the John A. Cumber Primary School in West Bay. Minister Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Sandra, and good morning to Cayman Marl Road. Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody's
Yes.
doing well.
Happy Tuesday. Is that your dog walking in the background?
Yeah, that's Kobe.
Kobe just made his appearance. Thank you so much, Minister, for joining us this beautiful Tuesday morning. Now, I know that we were expecting another guest. We're hoping that she will be at some point joining in. But can you tell us a little bit about this guest and what her situation was?
Yeah, first off, just to give you a little update, hopefully she will be coming on. I just spoke to her.
Oh, good.
Just wanted to confirm with her HR that they're okay with her coming on to speak about it. Good morning, Miss Alice. So hopefully that can be confirmed in a few minutes. And I'll get a WhatsApp from her. So if you see me fiddling with the phone, that's me trying to respond to her.
Yes.
Basically, you know, I unfortunately got the news yesterday that a good friend of mine and a former constituent of mine, but a Caymanian nonetheless, called me and confirmed that, you know, she was positive for COVID.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because just a few months ago when we took government, you know, people go to their leaders and people who they know discussing about whether to take this vaccine because there's a large vaccine hesitancy. And we were discussing it because she has other ailments. And, you know, she was a bit hesitant and afraid, but wanted to do the right thing by getting vaccinated. Then yesterday I got the call saying that, you know, Kenneth, my son was in Georgetown Primary School. We tested negative at the start, and about 5 to 8 days later, symptoms started to show, and ultimately found out that they had the virus. And you know, you can hear like a person having severe cold symptoms. You know, when you talk to somebody and they sound very groggy in the background, like you can hear that they're in pain or, or feeling unwell. But just expressing how grateful she was for taking the vaccine because her viral loads are really, really high. And she could only imagine what it would have been like if she didn't take the vaccine.
Wow.
But I really wanted her to come on the show, and I hope that she still gets a chance to come on because though we've had persons come on and talk about the virus or getting the virus after they've recovered, we haven't yet heard from somebody who is currently going through it in real life, in real time. And I think it'd be good to hear from somebody directly so the country can understand this is serious and that we have to do everything we can to protect ourselves and to prepare for living in this new world with COVID in our midst. Because unfortunately, by the looks of it, COVID is not going away for some time. And it may be our new normal, the world's new normal. And we'll probably have movies and books and stories about a world before COVID came along. And I'm quite sure that there's probably some written book somewhere, maybe in some old draft paper of a life before colds came along. Who knows? But, you know, as humankind evolves and Earth evolves, we learn to survive in respect to these types of circumstances. I try to remind people that, you know, the world is full of risk. We get on the plane every day. We get in our cars every day. We just learn how to live with risk, and that's what humankind is about. When you were in the jungle before we developed all of this stuff, you go outside in the jungle, you don't know which animal is going to eat you, but you still need to go get food. So you still learn how to minimize and manage those risks, and you survive. And that's what the world is trying to learn to do now. And this is the transition of learning to survive with COVID in our midst.
And I think she's here.
She is.
Brian. Yes. Girl, I didn't know that was you. Good morning. We're going to bring you in. Good morning. Good morning, my dear.
Hi, good morning.
Oh my
Good morning,
gosh.
Tanisha.
Tanisha, are you okay?
Yeah, so far I'm feeling a little better today.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as bad.
So tell us, I know Minister Brian was just trying to give us a little bit of information, but tell us, start at the beginning with your ordeal. So you do have a son or a daughter, a child that attends Georgetown Primary.
Correct.
And are they in year 2 with the other student, or they're in another year, or?
No, actually he's in year 6.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And he didn't show any form of symptoms when we first did the initial testing, we were both negative.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until about day 8 before he showed symptoms. And I didn't remember that it comes with a no smell. And he first explained to me that he couldn't smell anything, and I didn't take it serious. And then like a day or two after, I came down really ill. And it wasn't until Minister Turner asked me to have a PCR test done, and she arranged at the hospital for me to go and get the test done. And by Saturday evening, I was confirmed positive.
Wow.
And the nurse also let me know that my vital count was so high. If I weren't vaccinated, fully vaccinated, I could have been in the ICU or possibly dead. So I was explaining to Minister Turner that, COVID is something that will be in the community. COVID is something that is going to be here. But it's very important for people to take, especially my situation. I'm a person that goes from work to home and nowhere else. And it's still reaching my household, and it came through my son. And the importance of being vaccinated, because if I wasn't vaccinated, I would be a lot worse.
Wow. And tell us a little bit about your the vaccination process for you. Was it an easy decision for you to get vaccinated? Were you one of the people who from the onset said, yes, I'm going
No.
to get vaccinated? You hesitated.
I hesitated. I actually didn't went until the vaccines were gonna actually near expiration, and I was like, I was scared. I was scared. I was joking around. I told my cousins, I was like, I'm gonna die if I take this vaccine. And then I spoke with Minister Brian, and he reassured me that it would be safe. And then I also spoke with Big J, who is diabetic, because I'm diabetic as well. And that was a scare for me, being diabetic, to take this vaccine. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take it for the sake of my kids, which I did. And I'm so thankful that I did, because if I didn't, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tanisha,
Girl,
Tanisha,
that's an unbelievable story. But I mean, I'm so glad that you came on, because it shows us that number one, anybody can get COVID, no matter how careful you think that you're being. And when did you actually get vaccinated? When did you go in and get vaccinated?
Around May.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got vaccinated pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tanisha, do you mind talking about what little man, how he's feeling? Because I think that one of the things that I'm really concerned about is what the feeling and the anxiety life is for a child. Because they really don't understand. We're adults, we can rationalize and start to compartmentalize these feelings of the severity of COVID, right? Kids can't. And I remember you talking about it last night about how he felt. Can you tell me about that? Because parents need to hear this.
Yeah, he's very emotional. He's crying. He doesn't understand. I mean, he's not as ill as I am, but I think the whole fact mentally to know that he has COVID, it has affected him. I had to take him out of online classing yesterday because he was just crying nonstop. So it has an emotional toll on them. And us as parents, we need to make sure that we're there to support them in every way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It must be,
Wow.
it must be really scary because I mean, over the last almost 2 years, all you hear is COVID, 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 and this bad thing called COVID. And children only, I mean, they're living their own little worlds and they try to play and have fun. And then they hear about this thing that everybody talks about, which is COVID, and it's bad. And a
Right.
child goes, I got it. They must be so scared inside,
He
right?
is. He is. He
Mhm.
definitely is. He is terrified. And then with me and him having to isolate from the others, that too takes a toll.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you have other children in your household.
Right. I have other kids and they're all negative. So right now with me and him being positive, we're actually isolated from everyone else.
Right.
Right.
Wow. Well, I guess in a way, thank God that you can isolate with him just
Uh,
to give him that additional, mother's comfort
support.
and love that
Yeah.
he needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, don't worry, you have the best person to isolate with.
Yes.
I agree.
How difficult has it been taking care of him when you both are sick?
The good part about it, his symptoms are not bad. He just really have a cough with a cold, and he lost his smell. That's pretty much it. Whereas
Mhm.
I'm having fever. Um, some moments I'm really down, and then some moments I'm up. This morning feels like a really good morning, so
Mhm.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Awesome.
All right.
Wow. I
Well,
mean, this is such an
Tanisha,
amazing story.
I want to talk to you about something else because obviously getting the virus is you got first-hand experience of the feeling and the fears and all that, right? Because earlier on in the show, Sandra has been doing an amazing job over the last couple of weeks, almost months now, talking about the life of COVID, and we're just talking about some Caymanians overseas, where the living with COVID in their midst is a little bit different, and people are adjusting themselves to it already, learning how to know that they're living in a society where it's around and the protocols overseas. How do you feel as a Caymanian knowing that you've now contracted the virus, about this big discussion about reopening? And now this is live. This is me and you. I've never asked you this question before, but
Mm-hmm.
I want the public to hear this journey and this discussion together and see how real it is. So how do you feel about the notion of opening, knowing that you got the virus, your children got it, your son got it? How does that feel for you?
Um, to be honest, like I understand that the island have to open back up. I totally understand that. However, how I feel having COVID, I feel in order before the borders are to open, we have to make sure that our HSA team is ready because
Mhm.
if if and when we do open, the spikes are going to rise, and we have to
Mhm.
take into account that there's people here that choose not to vaccinate, and we have to respect that. However, it's not something that I would recommend. I would definitely say get the shot because that is what has saved my life right now. And I just feel that our HSA team needs to be up and ready. They have to be
Mhm.
fully ready to take on the loads that will be coming through the door.
Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
very strong perspective. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have been saying that. So
Yes.
ultimately, is it a type of attitude of saying is it eventually going to happen as long as we're prepared to handle it? Then we should move forward.
I think as once we're prepared to handle the outbreak and the spread,
Mhm.
then we could prepare to move forward with the opening. But if we're not prepared to handle the loads of testing, the loads of persons who will be coming into the hospital, I
Mhm.
don't think that it'll be fair to open a country and then our health services cannot provide the assistance and care that people will need.
Right.
Okay. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, Sandra, I'm gonna
Yeah.
give you a even bigger opportunity to have a one-on-one with Tanisha. I just wanted to facilitate this introduction to
Yeah.
Cayman as to you. I do have to get in this cabinet this morning. I love you both very, very much. The
Yes. Thank you so
discussion,
much.
further discussion, is helpful for everybody to understand what's going on. So I'm going to leave the
Mhm.
conversation, and you guys have a wonderful day. God bless you, and God bless Cayman.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Kenneth.
You're welcome.
So Tanisha, I really want to thank you for coming on this show, because I know that it takes a lot of courage. Although, like, I feel like COVID is something that has to be normalized in the sense that, no one should feel a way about catching COVID and saying, yes,
Right.
I'm COVID positive. But I'm very much aware that some people still feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell people that I'm COVID positive, like it's some sort of plague, and I
No.
appreciate you coming on, because I think by you sharing your experience and actually putting a face to it, it will help to do just that, to normalize the stories and the people who have
Right.
COVID. Tell us what some of your symptoms have been. Now, you mentioned something I thought was very, very interesting, and that is that your son actually said that he couldn't smell
Right.
anything. And that is a known side effect of being COVID. And at first, what did you think when he first said that to you? Do you think, oh, this is something alarming, or?
No, he's kind of scornful.
Yeah.
So I thought he didn't want to dig his boogers. So I was like, "Did you clean your boogers?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, mommy." And I didn't pay it any mind because he wasn't sick. He didn't get sick like I did.
Yes.
He was just fine. It's just that he lost his smell, and then like a day or two after, he had a cough with a cold.
Mm.
And I still didn't take it serious. I told him to just continue to wear a mask. And then it wasn't until a day or two after when I got sick. And I mean I got sick.
Mm.
I lost my smell as well. My nose
Mm.
was running. It was like a cold. And I was telling my family friends like, "Oh, I think I have a flu." And I'm all right now. And it wasn't until Minister Turner called me. She said, "Tanisha, do you remember that the 14 days is an incubation period? You could be showing signs of the virus." And I was like, she's like, "Please go to the hospital and get tested." And she organized that for me. I want to say thank you to her as well, because as my MP, she has not left me out. She
Mhm.
continued to support me. She continued to just check on me, just there, just a phone call, just to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" So I think that's really good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Kevin is joining us. Maybe Kevin has a few questions for you. And I also want to talk about, you described some of your symptoms as well. How are
Okay.
you feeling now? Like,
Um,
are you having
Today,
any respiratory distress?
no.
No.
Sometimes when I'm talking long, I feel kind of tired, and
Yes.
that was yesterday. I was feeling. Now that I'm talking, I don't feel as bad. Today feels like a really good day today.
Mm-hmm.
But I had symptoms where my nose were running. I was sneezing a lot. My shoulders were aching. I had internal fever. I no shakes. I didn't have any shakes, but there's moments when I feel really awful. Like last night, I was vomiting.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, it comes with different side effects. Like I said, some moments I'm fine, and then some moments I'm really down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and really appreciate you sharing your story. I mean, it's what you're describing is exactly what many people here, pretty much are saying as well. I do have a question for you about your child as well too. Did she have any stomach aches or was complaining about stomach aches before at all?
Stomach ache? Did your stomach hurt you at all? No, his
No.
stomach
Okay.
didn't hurt. Yeah, his
Yeah.
stomach didn't hurt at all. He just complained for the loss of smell, and then he had a little cough with a cold.
Gotcha. Because I only asked that because I know a lot of the kids, younger kids here, that's not one of the real listed side effects as much. But for kids, it seems like a lot of times that's a good indicator. But everyone is different. But a lot of what you're saying is certainly exactly what a lot of people are going on here. And I am so thankful that you also talked about making sure those who have the power at HSA are aware that making sure that they're fully prepared for taking care of patients. You were completely spot on with that, and then hopefully that they're getting things lined up so when COVID starts to get to the islands again, we definitely have a much better chance of taking care of people. So thank you for also bringing that up.
Yeah. Sabrina wants to know, Sabrina Conley, how's your breathing? And I think she kind of just described that sometimes when she's talking, she has some difficulties, but it is somewhat improved. So what day did you actually start seeing symptoms for yourself?
Around day 10.
Okay.
Around, no, day 9. Sorry, day 9. Yeah,
Around day
last week
9.
Friday. Yeah, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on Friday. I actually worked online from home,
Mm-hmm.
and I messaged my manager, and I was like, "Look, this is it. I can't go anymore." And he was like, "Just take the rest of the day off," and that was it. I was thrown down since Friday.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
and that's one of the next things too. As things start to evolve in Cayman, you have to really think about, okay, not everyone has the benefit of working from home, but those that do and employers, they got to start thinking about those plans for sure. Okay, if I have a sick person, are they able to work from home? Be very flexible is really what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying. Employers need to make sure that they're being very flexible, but everyone at home also needs to think about, okay, if I get sick, I only got so much sick time and stuff. Am I able to comfortably work from home? Maybe a couple hours here, a couple hours there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the time that we really need to just be as flexible as possible, and really just help each other out, because ultimately it's going to happen to many people where you're going to end up having to quarantine because of an exposure, or even getting
Mm-hmm.
sick. And so these are things everyone needs to really be preparing for as Cayman start to increase in cases eventually. And it's not to scare anyone, it's just you just got to be prepared.
Yes.
Just like you would for in case we have a storm scare or any type of other thing you prepare for. You just want to make sure that you're just able to live your life, but at
right,
the same time do it in a way that you always have this in mind, that you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be doing some sort of preparation should you get sick.
right.
Yes. And just a few questions from our listeners. So Zelda wants to know how many days from when you and your child tested negative to eventually testing positive. So I think it's the 10 days, right?
Yeah, 10 days for me, and his symptoms started at day 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay. And it really was only until your symptoms started and that when Minister Turner said maybe you need to get tested, that you actually got tested.
right, correct,
Yeah. So there could be a possibility, we have as parents, we have children all the time that get sick. And a lot of times you're like, oh, it's no big deal. Like they're just coming down with another little cold or whatever because they
right.
get it so often. So do you think that if you hadn't gotten sick, that you would not have thought it was anything more serious for him?
Definitely. If I hadn't gotten sick, I wouldn't have taken it. His symptoms would have started. No, I wouldn't have taken it. If I
Yeah.
didn't get ill,
Yeah.
I would have never suspected that he would have had the COVID.
Right.
All right.
I
Yeah.
this just really goes to show how important you have to listen to when they say, hey, quarantine for this period of time. Whether quarantine, there's a
Yeah,
reason
I
they're
am
saying
so
to do so.
happy. I am so happy that I listened to the rules after the testing at the
Yes.
first primary. I came home and I didn't left my residence at all. So I'm very happy that I didn't, because I could have transferred the disease to other people, not knowing that I have the disease or my son have it. So that's kind of good. And I think people need to adhere to the rules and just
Yeah.
listen. If you need to isolate, because I mean, it's dangerous. You don't want to be infecting people, especially persons who aren't vaccinated, because it's a
Absolutely.
really deadly disease. And I mean, people can fall. We can have a lot of deaths on our hand here in the Cayman Islands.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
And someone just made the observation on WhatsApp, one of our other listeners, who said her being sick and not knowing validates the importance of being vaccinated. So someone's saying that they were very, very happy that you got vaccinated, and that proves the point that, as you said, you're high risk. You are, a diabetic, and you could have seen, additional issues come out of that, along with a COVID diagnosis. So I'm so glad that you were vaccinated.
right.
Now, you mentioned that you still kind of think that people have a choice when it comes to vaccinations. Do you think you feel like when you made the decision to get vaccinated, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to say on a scale of 1 to 10 that I felt this strongly about vaccination, so say you can tell us where you were. Say you were 5 when you got it. has your position moved now that you've tested positive and you've been a little bit sick with this? Or you maybe maybe you were 5 and you're now at 8?
I'm
Give us an idea.
I'm definitely a 10.
You're at 10.
Definitely a
Where
10.
would you say you were before?
I was probably at a 6 because I was
Yeah.
iffing and butting about it. I was scared that maybe if I took the vaccine, I would have died from the vaccine, or it would have given it would me with diabetes. I would have had complications with it. That's why I asked persons who were diabetic if they got the vaccine, and they told me yeah, they were fine. So that kind of motivated me a little bit more to go. And
Yeah.
then I was like, you know what? At least I'm taking a chance for my kids. You know,
Yeah.
I always put them first in every decision that I make. And
Yes.
I took this vaccine because of them. You know, I didn't want them to be kids without a mother, you know. So
Exactly. And you've got 4, is it 3 or 4 beautiful boys?
4 boys. 4
Yes.
boys. Yeah.
So Miss Brenda is encouraging everyone to please get vaccinated. Sabrina says, so happy to hear and see that her little man are all doing okay. For Rita says, wishing you and your child a speedy recovery. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Louisa thanks you for coming on the show and for letting us know. Alice says, Tan, knowing you, you're a strong woman and you will beat this.
Thank you.
Charlene is sending you some prayers as well.
Thanks.
Sabrina says, good answer, that she wants the HSA team ready, even Health City and Doctors Hospital as well. And this is a point where we're going to be, talking about a number of sort of things as part of our CMR COVID Spotlight series, which Kevin has organized for us. And I must say that one of the sessions is going to be specifically on Cayman's preparedness, because I think Cayman's preparedness is critical to the reopening of our borders.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we mentioned that Bermuda had 9 deaths over the weekend. And one of the concerns that their health minister is having is that people are going to the hospital at the very last minute. If they need medical assistance, they're waiting a little bit too long, which is quite shocking. But she's saying get medical help at the earliest possible stage. So Rita, thank you. She says, wishing you a speedy recovery for you and your son. Anne says the medical community has said that they're all ready. Well, do you think how, I mean, you've gone through the process, Tanisha, of being in isolation with this Georgetown primary situation, now testing positive. Do you feel in your heart that the HSA public health and how you've been handled and what you're hearing from other Georgetown primary students, do you feel like the health services are ready?
I don't think that they're fully ready, no. If I'm going to be honest, no, I don't think that they're fully ready, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sandra, I know you and I have been kind of talking about this very topic as well. About a month ago, I've started asking questions, very targeted questions to HSA, and I'm still waiting to hear back from some of them. And again, I've invited and trying to get some information so they could come on and talk about some of their preparations. I know here in Florida, where there is a very significant, very huge medical system, and we thought we were ready for certain things. And we learned a lot that, there were things that we needed to be more ready for, such as one, medical grade oxygen. We had hospitals here that was down to 1 or 2 days of medical grade oxygen because of the amount of patients that were hospitalized. And then also some of that early treatment and stuff. And there were so many different things that we just were not necessarily fully prepared for. And we have a much larger capacity than the very little beds that we have availability in Cayman. And so I'm asking these questions, waiting for answers.
Yes.
I do believe that there's a lot of great people doing some work in the background. I'm not saying they're not completely not ready, but I want to know what are some of those things that they have done, because it's very important to have these things lined up before the reopening occurs, because this is the time. This is the absolute time to finalize these plans. Pretend it's a hurricane approaching and it's a few days out. And so you need to finalize all these things. You got to have your monoclonal antibody treatments ready to rock and roll, because again, that early treatment, just like you mentioned, is so important. And that's supposed to be given within the first, I believe it's 10 days of getting the virus. And that's going to keep you out of the hospital. So we want to say, okay, let's say you got it. Now we have this medicine that is already under emergency use authorization. that could help you stay out of the hospital. And that's what you really need, because if you get in a car accident, you have a heart attack, you have some other medical condition that takes you to the hospital, if it's filled with individuals fighting COVID and your medical staff is all tied up with those cases, what's going to happen to your quality of care? So, we want to make sure that we are doing everything we possible to prevent it from spreading. And if you do get it, be able to immediately treat you so you don't end up having a much more not so pleasant outcome. And again, I'm so glad she is, not in the hospital. She probably would have been there if she wasn't vaccinated.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of these things.
We've got some additional comments here. Sabrina says, I think we need to increase the confidence in our healthcare system. Then people will be more at ease. Good morning, Barbara. Barbara says, good morning, everyone. Have a blessed day. Get your shots. Sabrina also says that she knows that Doctors Hospital and Health City have been preparing. Kevin, that was you.
And then again, we do know that they're preparing, but let's hear about it. We need to hear what those preparations are, because that's the only way there will be confidence in the healthcare system. So we need to know. We need to know these questions. We have to have the questions answered, is what I'm saying.
Right. All right. Anne is praying for you and your son. Miss Alice says, thank you, Kenneth Bryan. Dawn says, wishing you and your child a speedy recovery. Chantal is here. She's also praying for full recovery for you and your son. Charlene says, Minister of Tourism, we must be fully prepared, especially where our children are concerned. They need to be educated, and their safety is imperative, as well as the community members of this island. Therefore, please take this slowly and wisely for everyone's well-being. Charlene, thank you. Celine says, does she and her son have their sense of smell back? Oh, this is an interesting question. Has his sense of smell returned?
No. But his has, mine hasn't.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
Yeah, and just to kind of go on that, Sandra, a lot of the cases that we observe here is you might actually test negative, but you might have no sense of taste or smell, or one of the other not returning for a couple months sometimes for some people. Everyone is different. Nobody's the exact same. But it's just one of those things that, you got to think about. We have what you call long COVID, and one of the shows that we have will be highlighting long COVID. Tonight's show, we're going to, again, like you highlighted, we're going to have healthcare experts from and in fact another individual who got COVID sharing their stories about what's going on here. So definitely those who are watching, we ask you to come back at 7 tonight Cayman time to listen to that very important information. And we watched last Thursday's show where we spoke to an epidemiologist.
So the discussion for this evening's show is frontline healthcare workers highlight their experiences. We're going to have Danielle Jones on with Cosette Hubbard and Jen Bodden-Evans. So a really, really interesting.
And Jen Bodden-Evans actually works in fire rescue. She's a paramedic, and she's actually from Cayman as well too. So she's a Caymanian who works up here in Florida as a paramedic, and she's going to talk about her experience taking care of. She's one of the first people when you call 911. She shows up in an ambulance, and she's one of the people that are taking you to the hospital. So again, she's going to add some good value of what she experienced taking care of COVID patients and sharing some of the stresses of being in that type of line of work, as well as you just mentioned Danielle Jones and some others.
All right. Ms. Sue says, thank God that she had her vaccine and her son is going to be okay. Patricia, thank you so much. Wishing you a speedy recovery. Alice is begging people who haven't gotten the shot to please go get it now. Louisa says, thank you for sharing your experience and wishing you and your son a speedy recovery, Tanisha.
Thank you.
Ms. Zelda says, are you currently taking anything for your symptoms? So have the doctors prescribed anything that you can take?
I haven't spoken to a doctor as yet. The nurses at the health city, at the health services has been in contact with me. They give me a daily checkup. They'll call and check on me. They recommend that I take Panadol, and I also let them know that I'm taking Sudafed for the congestion. So they just recommend that I continue to take those, but I haven't really seen a doctor.
Okay.
Have they recommended or have they asked you to monitor your oxygen levels? Like maybe give you a pulse ox? That's the little thing you stick on your finger and it tells you
Nothing.
nothing at all.
Nothing. All they told me, if I'm having shortness in breath, if I'm having difficulties breathing, I must call 911 and let them know that I'm COVID positive.
Okay, so that's one thing I'm going to tell everyone to do. Whether you're getting it from Health Service Authority or not, this is something everyone needs to invest in. And trust me, I have no stocks or shares in this company, but I have for myself. Get a pulse ox. If you get COVID, you need to have a pulse ox. And anytime you drop below, let's say 93, that's the time you need to call 911 and get to a hospital or get to the emergency department, because that anything starting to go below that could go downhill pretty quickly, and you want to avoid that from happening. So that's something that you should be doing, as well as anyone that might have COVID in the future. That's something they should invest in. So just get that as part of your kit. Again, one of our shows is going to be a preparedness director here in Florida that actually talks to people and businesses and how to prepare your homes, how to prepare your businesses. So again, that's some of the tips that we'll share. But I'll tell you right now, everyone needs to invest in one of those, because if you do get sick, you want to know what your levels are, because if you start to get down too low, it could cause you issues, and we want to avoid that.
Okay.
Right. Wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you, Kevin, for that very useful information. How hard is it to get those devices, Kev? Are they in short supply? Or are they ready?
Well, there were times that, because again, it is something that we have been recommending for all of our folks here in Florida to get as they're preparing their homes, and there were some shortages for a period of time, just like your toilet paper.
Yeah.
But now we get them in good supply. In fact, I have one in my bag right now. I have one in my vehicle. I have two at home. So I made sure that I stocked up. I know my mom. Every month or every other month I send some stuff to my mom. Cayman is like, we all shopaholics. And she had ordered some because she wanted to have some at her home in Cayman as well, to make sure that you're just prepared. So they're not that hard to get. I mean, here we got Amazon. So if I order it by the next day or two, I end up having it here. So there was a shortage. Right now, there shouldn't be any significant shortages. So if the supermarkets and stuff are hearing this message, you might want to stock up on that. That should be part of your preparedness kit for COVID. And again, when we have that show, we're going to talk about some things that you need to have. Just like you have a hurricane kit, you need to have I'm potentially going to be quarantine kit, where you're going to have certain items inside that to help you throughout your quarantine. It's going to save you a lot of headache. You're going to be proactive instead of reactive. You don't want to not have it. You want to have it and not use it, rather than not have anything at all and then trying to figure out things while fighting the virus.
Yeah. So Florida says that with hearing all of their symptoms, is it something for Minister of Health needs to get other government school children checked? Because I know for a fact that there are many children out of school with these kind of symptoms. So Cara says, so imagine everyone who hasn't gotten the vaccine. Just imagine how ill you will get. And we have proof that taking the vaccine, the disease is bearable for most people. Please be smart, all the rest of Cayman, and just go and get vaccinated. It's so simple to do. Wishing you and your son a speedy recovery. Miss Marion, we just discussed that. She talked about what she's been taking. Miss Mona, thank you. So that 5 to 7 days quarantine period is not enough.
No,
Kevin,
it's not.
do we know the percentage of people that the 5 to 7 day quarantine period would catch? I mean, obviously, this is one example.
I don't have that number. That would be a good question for my epidemiologist. That's one of the things that he would look at a little bit more. But I know Cayman, their quarantine period, because they're following the UK standards. The UK standards is stricter than what we follow here, because here they're more focused on really getting people back into the community, a lot higher than in the UK. They're really following a stricter guideline. So it really depends on everyone's situation. This is the pulse ox that I was telling you about. I just went to my bag, has a little case. You literally just stick it on your finger, and within a matter of 5 seconds.
I've seen those at the doctor's office.
Yeah, when you go there, they always, and they're not expensive. You're talking $10 to $15 maximum is what you should be paying for one of these things.
So Ralston says, good morning, Miss Sandra, and to all. Get well soon, young lady, and your son. I have a sister-in-law here in the U.S. She lives in Florida, and she's fully vaccinated. But when she went to New York for a short trip, she got COVID. And if she was not vaccinated, she would most likely have died because she also has underlying illnesses. Wow. Miss Brenda says, smart girl, you're already high risk. Irvelin says 14 days is a safe amount of time. Well, that's the maximum. After losing, Zelda's a question. Says, after losing his smell, did your son have any other symptoms? Is he feeling no other symptoms now in quarantine?
He only has a cough with a cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, he's fine. He's not feeling as ill as I am.
Yeah.
Wow.
So here the quarantine times here, in Cayman, before you could really exit quarantine, they require you to do a PCR test, and then that's when you get your freedom. Here, they don't really test you on the way out. What they do is they use a time-based method. They're pretty sure, based on the data that they do have, that anything beyond 10 days after a positive test, your viral load will be low enough that you're not going to spread it to others. That's what they're saying here. So after your first positive test, you just count 10 days, and then you just go about your business, and you can end your quarantine period, unless you are severely immunocompromised. So if you are one of those people, older individuals who have a lot harder time dealing with it, they are recommending that full quarantine period, pretty much like what the UK standard saying is that 14-day, and that's just how they're handling it here.
So Rachel says, thank you for sharing your story and for taking the vaccine and staying home. The community owes you thanks. Get well soon. Morvia wants to know, what kind of vaccine did you get? So Morvia, most people in Cayman are doing the Pfizer vaccine. We're going to talk about vaccine choice another day, but that has been what has been made available to us here in the Cayman Islands. So Nicholas says her story is proof that the 5-day quarantine for vaccinated persons is inadequate. How many of these cases will it take for government to make the required changes? All the best to her and her child. May you recover fully and quickly. This is a decision, the quarantine period, that at some point we have to recognize that quarantine period is going to fall away completely, especially for people who have not tested positive and who are not symptomatic. Erica is sending you God's wishes for your son, for yourself and your son. May God be with you, she says in Spanish. Miss Brenda says the vaccine came out, it would have been the Pfizer. For the vast majority of people, I was reminded, though, that we did get a small percentage of AstraZeneca vaccine as well, but that was a very small percentage. So Charles says, I think persons with underlying issues that took the vaccine need to be a testimony of being okay after being vaccinated. Maybe this will motivate people a bit. Yes. And I think, even Tanisha said that her hesitation was because she had this underlying issue as a diabetic. But in the end, that was actually what convinced her that, on the one hand, that's a concern with the vaccine. But on the other hand, it's a much bigger concern with COVID. If you have underlying issues and you become COVID positive, your chances of surviving it or of having a really bad experience become that much worse. So Rachel, thank you. We did put that story up late last night, actually, about what's happening in Bermuda, people taking home remedies and stuff like that when they shouldn't be to treat COVID. Bev wants to know, how many positive cases are there now? Bev, let me just get that information for you. We did have, I think it was 12 plus 5, so 17 cases yesterday, which would have been over the weekend, because
so there are 49 active cases currently, 1 hospitalized, 48 non-hospitalized. 18 of those are asymptomatic, 31 of them are asymptomatic, and that is the latest data. We do have about 77% of people in Cayman with 1 dose of the vaccine, and 72% of individuals in Cayman with all 2 vaccines.
Yes. So thank you, Kevin. So yes, Bev, so that should answer your question there. And I think the 1 hospitalization isn't directly related to COVID. It's just that the person happens to be COVID positive, but they're hospitalized for other reasons. I think that's the elderly lady from Northside. So Josephine says, my mom is diabetic, heart issues, needs a liver, and I made her take it with no issues, not even a fever. Thank you so much, Josephine, for sharing that with us. And I think that, Kev, for every single person who says that they've taken the vaccine, they've had a side effect, if every other person who hasn't, which is the vast majority of people, would step forward and say, I took the vaccine and I'm fine. Or, I took the vaccine, I had a sore arm, which was nothing. We need to get that message out there, because I feel like there's a hyper spreading of the 5 people in Cayman who have said they've had an adverse effect. And they're all over social media. They keep repeating their stories over and over again, to the point where we feel like, oh my God, it's 1 million people in Cayman who've had an adverse effect, when in fact it's only been 5 or 6 people, or whatever the numbers are. And we have shared the numbers from the HSA folks, because I want to remind you all that the HSA is tracking this information. Naturally, you have to report it. If you've had an adverse effect to the vaccine, contact the HSA. They have a reporting, chain and number that you can report these things to. And they're actually keeping a graph and charting the information, so they know precisely how people are reacting. Yep. Sabrina says, can you ask this lovely lady why she thinks that they're not ready? Does she have any suggestions for the HSA?
Like right now, like I'm saying, I haven't spoken to a doctor since I've been diagnosed positive. I don't feel that they have the support in regards of manpower as well. I think they're short of staff. And I think that they need to be more prepared, just overall in general, in regards, because right now I've been tested positive since Saturday. I haven't, like I said, I haven't spoken to a doctor. No one has recommended, even what this young man just explained to me about my oxygen levels. All of these things are vital. I was only recommended that if I'm feeling short of breath, I should call an ambulance. So I think that's kind of just leaving me out there in the cold with just a bit of information, which obviously if I can't breathe, I'm going to call 911. But what do you recommend that I take? There's no form of information. I don't feel comfortable. I thought, they would have been more hands-on, ensuring that I was well, because I've complained about my symptoms. I have let them know that I'm not feeling well, and I still feel like I'm out here on my own,
Yeah. So part of our contact tracing process here is that's when you a lot of times get the information, and if you don't get a phone call yourself, you get an automated text message with these tips. That's how we're handling it here. So one of those tips again would be to get one of these things, and that's going to help. But with the Health Service Authority, I believe most people are going to have COVID, and they're not going to require any level of hospitalization. Right now you're well enough where you don't need to go to the hospital. So I don't want to make it also seem like HSA don't know what they're doing, because there's a lot of smart people that work at HSA, a lot of great work there, and they've already done an amazing job. It would be good if they give some more information about some of the tips that you need to do. I know GIS actually does share a lot of the information on science to look out for, but you sharing that means that we're not getting that message out there. GIS not getting that message out there. Here at CMR, we're not getting that message out there exactly on what people need to do if they get sick. And I believe part of that is because we haven't had such a lot of people getting sick. So that message is something that needs to now get out there a lot more. On what to look out for, and if you do get sick, that message needs to increase. So thank you for making sure you brought that up, because that just means all of the media out there, Cayman Compass, Word of Mouth, CNS, Cayman Marl Road, GIS, Cayman Times, all of them need to come together and get this message out there to the public. So if you get hospitalized, or if you get COVID, sorry, not hospitalized, if you do get COVID, this is what you need to do in order to, one, protect your house, as well as these are things you need to look out for. And if you have, blueness of your fingernails, if you're extremely short of breath, invest in one of these pulse oxes. And if these are the things you look out for, and this is when you need to go to the hospital. We're going to work on that messaging, and thanks for bringing that to light.
Okay, Jeremy says that I don't think that they're ready as well. Using the testing for the GTPS optional testing today. Is this because they're unable to manage the amount of persons that need to be retested? I don't quite understand the optional testing part. It would be good to get some sort of an explanation of that. Minister Brian, thank you for joining back in. We're just going through some of the comments here that we've had. Sabrina saying, can we have a COVID prepared segment with the different medical providers? And that would be good. Yes, and Kevin is working on, again, Dr. Lee is kind of
I have reached out multiple times to try to get some locals on. I'm waiting for some confirmation. We do have one local on, waiting for the government side to the Cayman Islands government side to confirm somebody and get back to me. Again, I've been chasing this for almost
It's so crazy, Kevin, that you've had more difficulty trying to book local guests than overseas guests.
It's been incredibly frustrating.
Virologists, like people who truly are dealing with thousands of cases every single week. You've had better luck getting those people booked for show than you've had local people.
Correct. I mean, I've reached out multiple times. I've had email wars, unfortunately, saying, "Hey, I just need some information." So I'm not trying to make anyone look bad. I'm not trying to do anything. I just need some information so we could share with the public, and that's really what we're trying to do. We just want to know what is being done so we can ultimately restore that public trust, and so we know also that people aren't sleeping behind the wheel either.
Okay. So Jonathan says he'll be surprised by the increase in numbers once the borders open. That's to be expected. Ann Smith also makes the note that the vaccination rate is quite low in Bermuda. Minister Brian, did you want to add something to the conversation?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, obviously we recognize that communications is key, and that's one of the areas upon which you've heard the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness that will start to improve. But I wanted to kind of add a little context to, can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The context to what are the treatment options in respect to a person who is sick at home? Because the truth is right now, most of the procedures are that you kind of ride it out and you take as much to reduce the symptoms like fever reduction and aches and sinus medication. There's no specific medication that cures this thing. It's quite similar to cold content.
You're just treating the symptoms.
Yeah. But what I think that Tanisha has alluded to is the comfort level of making sure that people know that you're going to be fine even at home, and here's when you trigger if there's something serious. So that comforting level, and I think maybe an increase in like a call system whereby people can constantly call and get reassured that I'm at home, I'm sick, but it's okay, because that's what is happening everywhere else in the world. And Kevin, you can attest to this. It's just that we haven't communicated that as often as other jurisdictions who've gone further down the line of what it's like to be open, because Cayman hasn't been dealing with COVID for quite some time. So most people have gone through this transition period already. We haven't. And sometimes, unfortunately, medical providers or specialists kind of already got comfortable with, okay, don't worry, I'm giving you the advice, just trust what I'm saying. And it reminds me of when you go to the doctor and you as a patient, you want to know as much information as possible, and he's going, calm down, you're fine. But if you don't constantly communicate, the doctors that are really amazing is the ones who have that strong bedside manner, who constantly keep you informed. And I think that's going to be a key exercise to making sure that our people are comforted in knowing that you are going to survive through COVID. If you do the right things necessary to prepare yourself, even though you may have to isolate at home by yourself, that's what's happening almost everywhere in the world. the reason why healthcare systems are not overwhelmed is because you can't put everybody who's tested positive in a hospital. It's just unrealistic. You'll never be able to do it. So the communication, I think one thing that I heard over the last 20 minutes is that what is it like to live at home with COVID? And that parameter, that world, that isolation, because lonely enough as it is being locked away, but also being sick at the same time and not have to worry about, okay, I'm aching here. Is this a big sign? So that comfort level, will definitely increase that. I know the minister has been talking about it already. So we're going to be starting to dive down on that. But the other part about whether or not we have the resources, we can always have more and more resources. Every country wish they had 10 times more, because the more that you have, the better you can take care of everybody. But the truth is, you want a system whereby people can learn and understand and educate to help themselves. And that communication is what we have to improve on how do people help themselves in this pandemic. That's how countries are surviving through this. Because even Kevin, I don't know if you have the stats on this, but per the 300 million, I think it is, population, 330 million population in the United States, it's not like they have 150 million medical staff to take care of the people. They have probably about 7% of their population who have medical experience. So you just try to make sure that the percentage of your person sick in your jurisdiction is never higher than what you have for your healthcare system. And how you do that is by ensuring people can help assist in the process and get rid of that fear of, oh my God, I have COVID. So mentally preparing yourself, and you're right, the communication has to be better, and we're going to improve on that because the work has already started. I can promise you this, Minister Turner is well known in respect to wanting that to happen, and you're going to see a lot of that happening soon because she's talked about it up to just yesterday. So I just want to put that in context, that though, yes, people may be at home, and there's not a constant everyday checking and making sure, we're depending on the patients to be able to monitor. And I think that maybe we haven't been able to deliver that communication better on how do you survive a COVID on your own. Not saying that you're on your own, that nobody would be there for you, but most people who get COVID, they deal with the symptoms quite like you would have a flu. You get over it, and then the COVID symptoms goes away, and then you're okay. Yeah. So I hope I didn't make it more confusing, but it will start to take more form. You'll start to see the picture come together as the days pass, as we learn more and more about what it's like to live with COVID in your midst.
Absolutely. And Kenneth, this is one of the things.
Sorry, Kevin. Just a reminder, folks, that we have already started that public media campaign with Kevin, talking to people overseas who are living with COVID. If you would like to be part of that video series, please reach out to Kevin. You can certainly reach out to him on WhatsApp or even on social media. He's been interviewing mostly Caymanians because we want to be able to relate to these individuals. We see the faces, we know who they are, we know who they follow, and all that great stuff. But he's been interviewing Caymanians, all over the world who are living in environments where they're open, where there is no quarantine, where there is no, mandatory lockdown every time somebody catches COVID. They are moving forward. And Charles says, I am one, and I was also hesitant, but did it because most of my family got vaccinated, and I have a child that can't be vaccinated. So Charles, thank you so much for sharing with us why you got vaccinated. Rachel says, my understanding is you need 8 trained staff to cover each 3 incubated patients over 24 hours. If we have 40 plus ventilators, but what about staff who know how to work with ventilated patients? So that's, again, one of the questions, Kevin, that we'll jot down.
That's actually one of the questions I sent to HSA about a month ago. Yes, I've been asking.
And I know Lizette, I am in contact with Lizette, and I think that the things that she can get back to us on, she does, but she needs to start agitating and encouraging, other people, Dr. Lee and others respond to these questions, because, hey, if we can't get the answers here at CMR, and we do dig in and we will find out, but if we can't get the answers, how can we reassure and build public confidence that we are ready to open. And that's what we want to do. So Ms. Nona says mandate vaccinations for everyone. This is the only sure way to make sure that HSA will not be overwhelmed. Then we won't have to be asking the question if they're ready. Don't tempt fate, says Nona. Wow.
So Sandra, just have a look at the chat, and this is definitely something that we want to bring to light as well too. Tanisha, you want to just go ahead and say goodbye?
Yeah, sure. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Tanisha.
All right, thanks. Okay, bye.
And please get
Take
some
care,
rest
Brian.
All right.
speedy and full recovery.
Yeah, one of the things with when people have COVID, I mean, they do you can't wear them out, can't keep them too long.
Yes.
So you've got to respect. She came on our show and definitely was able to share her story. But this is the next tip. If you know someone with COVID, check in on them, maybe write them a message or something, but don't let them talk too long. Their body needs to rest. So they need to kind of, take little slow walks and stuff, maybe on the outside in a safe manner away from people. But it's one of those things that you don't want to overwhelm them. That's just one other thing that, again, on one of our shows, we'll definitely highlight that as one of the things, but just make sure that you're being respectful for individuals who are fighting the virus.
And Tanisha's final message, she actually did message us in a private chat. Kevin, thanks for picking up on that because I did not see. She said she was feeling tired and she wanted to get some rest. She says, thanks for having me. And I hope that people will take my situation seriously and get vaccinated. And I'm so disappointed when I hear people say, all they're telling us to do is get vaccinated. When they're telling you, they being the experts, the politicians, anybody with sense, when we are telling you to get vaccinated, folks, it's because we know that that is the singular thing that will make a difference between us being able to open our borders somewhat successfully and not go back into complete shutdown versus never being able to open our borders again. So there is a reason why that is the constant message from everyone, because that is what you need to do. And even Tanisha, who is now, going through this COVID situation with her and her son, she is also saying, listen, I was hesitant myself. And I'm now telling you, I've moved from like a 6 on the hesitancy scale, or, not hesitancy scale, but a 6 on being pro-vaccine, like let's do it. When I got it, she was a 6 when she got it. Now she is a 10. She's saying go and get it 100%. Mm-hmm. Do not hesitate. Will government have to mandate it? Well, folks, you guys know what's happening in New York right now. We're going to put up a story about this later on. The deadline for New York workers to get vaccinated was yesterday. And believe me, New York is not playing around with you unvaccinated folks. They have brought in the National Guard to fill in emergency slots in hospitals. New York hospitals are firing and suspending staff who are refusing to get vaccinated. They're saying, bye. You don't want to get vaccinated? We don't have any time to play this game. You're putting our patients at risk by choosing not to get vaccinated. So after the deadline yesterday, there's begun a suspension of healthcare workers who are defying the state order to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And of course, it is resulting in some hospital shortages. Elective surgeries are either being postponed or curtailed, but they're sticking to their guns. They're saying,
I believe they're assembling the National Guard to assist with some of that hospital shortage. That's the way they're dealing with it.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, I'm gonna run and leave you now.
Thank
you so much for having me back on. I just want to say that one of the comments.
I think his connection
we lost him.
His connection was dropping there. Sorry, Minister, your connection was kind of dropping out. Let's see if we can add you back for your final words. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was just saying that, I think I saw one of the comments that suggested that I said that there was no treatment for this. Well, there's no proven medication at this particular point that is an absolute, is what I'm saying. So we got to do everything that we possibly can to prepare ourselves to have our own bodies ready to fight this, whether that is by vaccination. And I respect people's viewpoint as to whether they don't want to get vaccinated. I personally support vaccinations and I encourage you to do so, but I respect the fact if you choose not to. But also our immune systems, try to eat healthier, try to boost up your immune system by having good vitamin intake. These types of things is to help
the one thing that does fight the virus, and that's your immune system, right? So do those things, take the proper precautions, adjust your own social life in the way that puts you at less risk, and then we can get through this together, right? So I just want to say that. Thank you so much, Sandra, for allowing this show again, and Kevin for your input. I want people to feel a level of calm and comfort to saying that we recognize these things. That's why we're willing to come on CMR and talk about this thing raw, because the like today's show is Truthful Tuesdays. You get it as raw as you can get it. You talk about it. Know that your elected arm is listening, and we are going to respond in kind to make sure that we are prepared. And trust me, there's more things in the background that we've learned from respect to these recent outbreaks, and that we will be prepared when it's time to open. So I want those persons who are listening to be comforted by that. The government isn't just listening, sitting quietly. We're responding in kind. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Okay,
Kenneth, right before you go, I do need to correct you on something, sir. Sorry, and I hate to do this, but there is actually treatment, monoclonal antibody treatment, that is approved by the FDA in the United States, emergency use authorization, also used in the UK to treat people with COVID. It reduces hospitalization based on initial data by 70%. And I do know one of the little bits of information I have from the HSA so far is that they are aware of it and they are looking and making purchases for it. So it is there is treatment, but there is something that you can treat people for it, but it's not to replace vaccinations. It's a reactive.
Kevin, I think that's what I was trying to allude to. The fact is that there are people taking things for it to help them get through it, but there's no cure.
No cure.
By
No
all
cure at all.
means,
You're right.
you take something to reduce your fever. That's addressing the symptoms of it. I'm just saying that there's no cure for this. Of course, you take anything you can to get through it, to protect you from it, just to slow down the ailments. I'm not suggesting that there's not things out there that people are using to help fight this. I just want to be clear, right? Because obviously, as a politician, you don't want to be seen doing that. So yes, I agree that there's things out there that people are using, but there's no absolute at this particular point. If that was the case, we wouldn't have a COVID problem today. All right, I'll leave it there. God bless you all. Have a wonderful morning. Okay.
Perfect. Take care, Kenneth. Yep.
Okay,
and what I was mentioning is actually that's for hospital use, because that is by IV therapy. I mean, they actually hook you up to an IV. Here, the United States is actually the only place that has the Regeneron product, where that could be either by IV or by injections. But America did buy up all of that, so the world doesn't get that one, unfortunately. But there is treatment out there, but again, that's done by medical professionals. And then your ivermectin and all those other things. I mean, don't self-treat yourself. Take your advice from actual medical physicians when you're getting your medical advice.
So Louise says the community is too small to not be 100% vaccinated before the borders are open. Vaccinated can still catch COVID or its variant. So with an 100% vaccination rate, the presence of COVID-19 will be there and the spikes will happen. So it's important that the healthcare system has a plan to accommodate the spikes. Alice says she's going to place her order on Amazon today. Janet said that she purchased 2 from Walmart last year. People are discussing the population size of Cayman. Oh, yes. An interesting question that came in from Jonathan says, what about the other doctors and nurses that are anti-vaxxers here in the island? Should they have some kind of badge or something saying that they are unvaccinated healthcare workers? Well, thankfully, Jonathan, some of them have identified themselves. So if that matters to you, then you should know who they are, because they've been very, very bold in coming out and saying, who they are, which is quite interesting. I saw someone say that they were canceling their gym membership because of the new government regulations, which indicate that, you've got to, the gyms have to check to see if you're vaccinated or not. So they demanded a refund on their, because they don't want to be forced to get vaccinated. Well, I sure hope that those same individuals, when it comes time for them to travel abroad, in particular to the US, on holiday or vacation or anything else, that they remember that post about canceling a gym membership and they cancel their ability to go to the US entirely, which is exactly what's about to come down as of November. So we'll see. We'll see how many people stick to their guns, especially when it comes to travel. So virus can be detected in your system in 4 hours, which is not so. Marcia says she had COVID in December last year when she was in Canada, and she had a running nose for months. Jonathan says, what kind of treatment do they use in kids? Let's have one of the experts come on,
Yeah.
Jonathan. We can
We,
talk
we
to
don't
them.
want to answer some of those questions because we're not medical providers. I could give you the general statements and stuff we use here, but come on, let's listen to the show that we have the experts making the recommendations, as well as people themselves, our patients that we will talk to on a future show. We'll make sure we announce the shows as they're coming up, and tune in. If you don't get to watch it live, you could always watch it on Facebook or YouTube after the show. But if you have questions, send them on in to us, and we will certainly get your answers or your questions answered by the experts.
Yeah. Marcia says she took the COVID vaccine and no adverse effect. Janet says that her mom is diabetic, hypertension, and other issues, and she
That's my
took the
mommy.
vaccine with no issues at all. And I think Miss Janet, isn't your mom like in her 80s?
Yes, grandma's in her 80s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, she's also elderly, so she doesn't want to be around anybody who's not vaccinated. So thank you, Marcia. Nona says HSA isn't ready. Dwayne says I took the vaccine and had a sore arm for a day, similar to that of tetanus shot. Yep. Sue, thank you so much. I think we need to do a whole video series, and I got vaccinated and I only had a sore arm because that's what most people would have had.
Yeah, so we got again frontline healthcare workers on our show tonight, Sandra, at 7. We're going to ask them. We're going to ask them the question: have you ever had to treat a patient that had to go to the hospital because they were vaccinated? We're going to ask them tonight. Let's see what they have to say.
Yeah, awesome. Miss Brenda says, yet you have people lying on doctors saying that they told them that they can't get the vaccine because of some of these underlying issues. Well, I tell you what, Miss Brenda, if people are saying that and doctors have actually said it, they themselves are just woefully misinformed, because that's not the situation at all. Even pregnant women, the vaccine has been deemed safe for them as well. Sabrina saying a pamphlet of frequently asked questions. Unfortunately, Sabrina, most people just don't read. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but they do not read. Paul says Bermuda's latest spike occurred due to people not following public health protocols, whether they're vaccinated or not. We're all responsible for actions. I work in the emergency services, and I see firsthand how COVID is affecting families. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Miss Mona. Again, not entirely confident in the HSA. Aliano saying, what about people at home having the support that they need? Michelle, we actually want to speak to you about this situation with your daughter. Now, your daughter's had a very rare adverse effect. The doctors overseas have told you it's because of the COVID vaccine, but I think we need to have that discussion. And first of all, getting what she had is like 1 in a million. So, I mean, the fact that someone in Cayman would get it regardless, I think is quite shocking, really. But, we need to hear more of the details in terms of any risk factors that your daughter may have had, even in advance of this. Like, I've seen a couple things. I've seen a couple people around the world who have had this. It's the what's the proper term for it, Kevin? Guillain-Barré or whatever the
Guillain-Barré syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some information on that.
Yeah,
I think
and we do have a cardiologist and some others that's going to be on our show to discuss that as well too.
All right, folks, so make sure you tune in for that.
I was just replying to Bella.
But Michelle says, in Cayman, you all are doing a great job with covering up the risk. I don't think that that's true, because, again, I hope that you've contacted the HSA and you have now had them add your daughter to the list of this is what happened to her post vaccination. And let's be very, very clear. In the US, they've gone as far as reporting everything that's happening to people after they've been vaccinated, even though it's not even related to vaccinations, which when you go back and listen to a lot of the misinformation that's out there, being spread by the likes of Katina Anglin, for example. One thing she said on Radio Cayman a couple weeks back was that if you look at the adverse effect data being collected from the CDC, all these people have died as a result of taking the vaccine. And it's because she can't read properly, because it clearly says this is not cause and effect, and this has nothing to do with the vaccine. But if someone dies within the first 6 months to a year of taking the vaccine, and Kevin, hopefully one of your experts can speak to this, that information is being recorded by the CDC, even if they died in a traffic accident. If you go out there and you get ran over by a bus,
So let
it
me
is included in that. That doesn't mean you died because of the vaccine.
Yeah, so let me clarify that a bit. I mean, everything that is potentially a case will be reported. And so then there's an approval process where they go through each of the cases, and then they remove things that shouldn't be there. Now, this is not new to public health. For instance, when they come up with how many people died from HIV, or how many from AIDS, or how many people died from influenza or the flu, and how many people died from other diseases and stuff that are reportable, it's usually like midway into the year after that before they actually put confirmed numbers. All of the information on the websites that you see, it does have a disclaimer on there that says this information is preliminary, subject to changes, not complete information. So you're going to see a lot of over-reporting, because that's what it's encouraging. It's encouraging over-reporting. Then they're going to look through each of those things, and then they're going to say, okay, no, that's not links, that is links, and then they'll address it that way.
Okay. Thank you. Miss Rosemary Priscilla says someone with asthma and other health issues, including a lot of allergies to medication, and was on life support, is it safe for them to take the vaccine? Priscilla, you should speak with your healthcare professional who knows your full history, because there are, things specific to you that you might want to discuss with them.
And this is how I can easily answer that as a non-healthcare professional. What we tell people here is that if you are able to get pretty much any other vaccine, the COVID vaccine is also safe for you to take. Now, again, if you want to reconfirm that, we always strongly recommend that you speak to your healthcare provider who absolutely knows you. In case if you were allergic to certain ingredients, most likely you already know what you are allergic to. And then if you want to look through what's in the Pfizer vaccine,
the ingredient list is there.
You could be able to figure out if it's there. If you have a history of anaphylaxis, if you have a history of when you get vaccinated, you have to get an EpiPen, more or less. That's really what it is. That is somebody that probably should not be getting the vaccine, and that's something you need to really seriously discuss with your doctor.
Ms. Joy says, excellent show today. Every home needs a health care kit, as some countries are doing. Is government considering this, even to let people know things like the threshold of oxygen saturation? I think that goes back to Kevin's point about a little bit needs to be done in terms of public education. So hopefully we're gonna get there.
Yeah, and let me just touch on both, because there's 2 points inside there. Okay, yes, you should have a kit. Completely agree. Should government be required for that kit? I don't believe that. You can't depend on the government to provide everything for you. If you need a box of Band-Aids, do you say, hey, minister, I need a box of Band-Aids? No, you have a bit of personal responsibility. And so these are things that you need to acquire on your own, because you can't depend on the government to provide everything for you. What they need to do better at, just like we all agree, is improve that health communication, that public health communication. And that's what really needs to be improved on their part.
Miss Marjorie says people locked in at home need 3 meals per day delivered to them, plus snacks, just like in the hotels. Remember, they're sick and alone, also meds, plus fruits, etc. Even if you run a tab for them. Okay, I'm not sure who provides that service on island, but if you do,
and I believe if there's someone that has a need where they just can't afford it, they're in quarantine because of an exposure, they really need to. There are different things in place. Of course, they're going to verify that there is a need and that you're not trying to mooch off the system. But there are certain public services that they do have that you can contact. And I know in the last press conference they did mention this, where if you contact them, they will assist you. Your elected representatives are there for you. But again, they know who have those needs. If you don't be afraid to reach out to them if there's a need. But if you can do it on your own, if you have a family member that is able to assist you, utilize them, because this is a community effort. This is not something that you need to say, oh, my government needs to take care of me because of this situation. You have a personal responsibility as a member of this community as well.
So DJ Yo-Yos is questioning the accuracy of the test being given at Miami International Airport. Chantel says move around a lot because COVID loves to give blood clots. Laying around all day is very dangerous. Well, I think laying around whether you have COVID or not is very dangerous. Priscilla says I only ask because it seems like everyone have all the answers here and people lying about that their doctors tell them not to take it.
What was the previous comment? I'm not sure what that was in relation to.
Oh, this was the one about asthma and other things. So speak to your physician.
Okay.
But choose your physicians wisely is what I would
That
suggest.
is another thing. Yeah. Get a second opinion if one is not really, because everyone knows what the consistent messaging has been. It is to get vaccinated, and it is to make sure that you wear your mask, social distance, avoid indoor settings. You know all of the messages that's been out there.
Yeah.
If someone is saying something different, you need to question why that is.
Yeah, DJ Yo-Yo saying that they're not doing the nasal swabs properly. They're not really going into the nasal cavity as you should. They're just doing it on the edges.
I want to touch on that too, Sandra, because that happened to, Martina, she came up here. Her mom was saying when they came up to drop them off at USF and I was helping them get settled, she said when they had to go get her student visa in Jamaica first before coming up to Florida. And she said in Jamaica, she found it very strange when they did what was supposed to be a PCR test, that they only stuck that Q-tip looking thing on the ring of her nose and then did the test. That is not a PCR test. That is not how you carry out the test. And then it goes to I know there's some misinformation out there that says, oh, PCR tests aren't very effective. Well, it's not effective if the person who's collecting the sample is carrying out the test correctly. If they're carrying it out correctly, it is considered the gold standard. It is the best way to find out if you currently have COVID-19. That is exactly a fact. There is nothing else out there that's better than a PCR test at this time. So yes, it is accurate but it has to be done properly. That's what
CC's saying that's BS. They worked a year and more as heroes without vaccinations, and now this is a thanks they're getting. Well, CC, the difference is they didn't have a vaccine available. Now that they do, there is an expectation that they will do what is the right thing to protect everyone. And if they're not willing to do that, the hospitals are not willing to take the risk. That's easy for you to say that it's BS, but you're also not running a hospital. You're not running a hospital that has no beds, running low on oxygen. These hospitals are not making money off of COVID patients. They are losing money. And more importantly, people are losing their lives. So if a hospital says that they don't want to be responsible for a higher death rate because their own staff are refusing to get vaccinated, I don't see what the problem is there.
And remember, tonight's show at 7:00, we're going to have healthcare professionals who are on the front line sharing their observations.
Let's talk to some of them, exactly.
So we're going to get it from people who work in that setting.
Yo reminds us that at the Miami airport, it's $180.
Okay.
CC says, when in fact it's vaccinated people spreading it. CC, unvaccinated people are spreading it. Yes, vaccinated people can get it, but at a lower rate. So that again is CC. I'm really frustrated with you and surprised, even as someone who's gotten the first shot, that you're still spreading this misinformation.
Yeah.
Unvaccinated people are spreading it. They're the reason why we have these variants coming up, because they were refusing to get vaccinated.
Got a tip for some of those who might be going through Miami or whatever, need a PCR test. There are public sites or other sites operated by government agencies that don't charge you, whether you have insurance or don't have insurance. So you don't necessarily need to buy or pay for it. It's paid for by the federal government. So that is one of the things to know where you could get maybe a no-cost vaccine, because you don't have to get it at the airport. Just make sure that the time that you're going to get the results is within that period that is required. The next thing, again, on CC's, statement. The epidemiologist made it very clear on what the situation is here. Out of what we call breakthrough cases, that's somebody getting the COVID after being fully vaccinated, it's somewhere between 2 and 4%. And I'm going to explain to you one of the reasons that people really are getting these breakthrough cases, unlike the rates that were a little bit before we had the Delta variant. The Delta variant has such a much higher viral load in it. So instead, again, this may be graphic for some, but pretend you were a police officer getting shot one time in a bulletproof vest. The Delta variant is shooting you multiple times in that bulletproof vest. And so you're going to have a much higher chance of having a negative outcome if you are getting hit multiple times. And again, if you are around the same individual in close contact, like a child, and you are always around that person for a couple of days, getting hit after being fully vaccinated, your chance ultimately goes up, because every time you are exposed to getting that virus in your body, when you breathe it or it comes in through one of the holes in your body, it's going to increase that chance of it breaking through that barrier of protection that you have. So that is why we have a much higher rate of breakthrough cases, unlike before. But ultimately, if you are unvaccinated, pretty much the first time or second time you get exposed to it, you're going to get it. If you are fully vaccinated, you have a much better chance, and it's going to be, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it's somewhere like 14 times higher, or I don't remember the exact number, but you are much higher. You have a much higher chance of getting it if you are unvaccinated than if you are fully vaccinated.
And why do you think people, anti-vaxxers, like to say, "Oh, it's the vaccinated that are spreading it," when they themselves?
Back in school days, or you always hear in church, you only take part of the Bible verse and applying that little part, but not reading the next sentence. It's that same exact mentality. That they're taking the information and trying to find an argument out of something that you can't argue about. You just need to make sure that you are keeping things in context. And if you really don't know enough about it, don't make yourself look silly by saying things that you really don't have much knowledge about. There are many public health experts out there that are trusted names throughout the world that are recommending these things. And we want to make sure that people are taking the advice from the medical community that studied these things. Again, coming up on some of the shows, we're bringing on a virologist, we have cardiologists, we have people that work in the healthcare setting. We have a lot of different things that we will be highlighting on the show. I'll just go through some of the topics. Tonight's show, we're bringing on healthcare workers who are on the front lines, sharing what they're observing in the hospital settings. Now, on Thursday's show, we're going to be talking about vaccines, cons, pros, as well as clinical research. We have someone, Dr. Kevin Sneed, look him up. He's from the University of South Florida. He's the dean of their pharmacy program, as well as we are bringing on some people who are actually actively involved in ongoing clinical research for COVID, for finding different treatment options and other options for COVID research. We're going to be bringing them on Thursday's show. We're going to look at monoclonal antibody treatment. We're going to have a show on how prepared is Cayman's medical system for COVID, which is, again, we're just trying to get some of the local doctors to confirm, because they best are able to answer that question for us. We're going to also speak about the history and effectiveness of COVID vaccines. We're going to kind of take a look back and kind of take a look at some of that. We're going to look at treating COVID. So if you are sick with COVID, we're going to really explore a little bit of the different treatment options that are out there. And again, we're talking about not hearsay treatments. We're talking about real treatments that is something that doctors will be recommending. We're going to be talking about being prepared for COVID in your home and business. Again, we kind of highlighted that earlier. We're going to highlight understanding variants and mutations. We're going to also be talking to a Caymanian therapist who lives in New York, who's going to be talking about dating and relationships during COVID. Because, people need to be in their relationship still, and they need to know how to do that safely, and also dealing with the mental stresses that comes with that. So we're going to be talking to that person about that topic. And then we're going to be, again, talking to more people who been through COVID, who had COVID. Tonight, one of them will be on, but also because they're also a healthcare worker. But we're going to be talking to people that actually had COVID, and they're going to be sharing their stories. And I mean, no one has the same exact story. Everyone has their unique experiences. So they're going to be sharing that as well. And then we're going to talk about healthy lifestyles that you will need to have ultimately to fight not just COVID, but just keeping healthy. If you're living a more healthier life, and we know a Cayman diet is not necessarily the most healthy diet, but encouraging some healthy eating choices to ensure that you are going to be able to better fight COVID should you get it. So those are just some of the topics that we're going to be exploring over the next month and a half. And we definitely want you to join in every Tuesday and Thursday night at 7 p.m. The show lasts about an hour. If you're unable to tune in at that time, of course, you could always rewatch it on Cayman Marl Road's YouTube or Facebook page. But we would certainly rather you be live, because if you think of a question on the spot, we will definitely ask the expert to answer it for you right there on the show.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, we've got all sorts of links here. I'm going to put one here about the Delta variant from Yale Medicine. Please educate yourselves. Spreading misinformation as though you know what you're talking about is a very, very dangerous position. I've got this picture up here because someone just sent this to me, saying that at this location in Miami, you can actually get a free COVID test. Patricia says that there's a place in Hialeah called CMR Medical. Oh, really? Are you saying
Sandra, when since you went in that business?
I know, right? I'm a bit confused by that. Is that really the name, CMR Medical? Anyway, $80 and you get results in 45 minutes. Miss Sonia says, I have several underlying health issues and I have both vaccines, and the only side effect I had was being sleepy after the second jab. Thank you for sharing that. I think I need to walk around with my camera and get some of these people who, have had no symptoms whatsoever. Mr. Amelia says that God is the answer. She's sick and tired of hearing about a vaccine. She'll take her chances with Jesus against the virus. Well, good luck to you. I've seen far more people on their deathbed praying to God that they should have taken it. Miss Brenda says MPs are obligated to keep honest communication with voters, not greasing their palms. Couldn't agree with you more. Mayma says, I'm a Caymanian living in Boston. Mayma, will you reach out to Kevin? We'd like to hear a little bit more about life there in Boston. Jonathan says, I already know what I need to do to build my wall of physical distancing. It's called smoke screen. Moya said, well, I guess they have to look at Cuba. It's the reason why I'm happy my parents and my family members are vaccinated. This will not be an issue we will have in the event of an emergency. Cuba, I think, might be already overrun with COVID, so I'm not sure that going anywhere else. Jamaica is not open to us. Cuba is not open to us. The U.S. has their own issues. And guess what? If you're not vaccinated, you can't go to the U.S. anyway for treatment. So you might find that you're going to be in quite a predicament refusing to get vaccinated. So Rosemary says in Cuba, they're dying by the dozens for the lack of medicine, and don't try to contradict me because I have family there. Thank you, Rosemary. Brenda says that she's told that their vaccines, because remember they have their own vaccine, has to be given monthly. Wow. What kind of vaccine is that? What are other options available for the unvaccinated? As far as remember, we only had the US and Jamaica. So if both are not an option, Cuba or just staying on the island is an option for medical emergency. If you're, well, Moya, this is it. This is the reality that people need to sink in, right? If you refuse and you have no medical excuse why you can't get vaccinated, if you refuse to get vaccinated, you are making a choice. You said it was your choice, and not you personally, but just people who are refusing to get vaccinated. So you are making a choice in terms of what will happen to you. Yes, if you're in the US now, you'd be losing your job. Yes, Ms. Amelia, people can't force you to get vaccinated. They've done it your entire life. Show me which vaccine that is mandatory in this country, rubella, and all the other ones that you've not gotten. You didn't have a choice. You didn't even have a say in it. They were just given to you. And the COVID vaccine is absolutely no different than any other vaccine. Vaccine mandates are going to become ordinary. And you can refuse at this point, at least in this country, to get it, but it will restrict you. So when you get sick and they need to air ambulance you off, America's going to say no. Cuba's going to say, we can't take you, we're full. Jamaica's going to say, are you kidding me? Nah, don't not bring him here. Go on, send him back. So you're going to have consequences as a result of your actions. There will be businesses, even on this island, that will say you cannot come in here if you're not vaccinated. It's your choice. And, God will open up all other windows for you. I'm sure of that. So you're not going to have to worry about it. I don't know. Alice says tonight is going to be a full house. Well, I sure hope so, because we are trying to, bring the experts on that can speak to you all directly. So Cece says that she's trying to reach the nearest strip club in Miami. Well, you know what, Cece, if that's your reason for getting vaccinated, then do it. Whatever your reason is, get vaccinated. Massachusetts has already mandated the vaccine. Yes, I mean, listen, it is a choice. If you choose not to get vaccinated, that's on you. But you're choosing not to go to Miami. You're choosing to limit your options in terms of medical care. Heaven forbid something should happen to you. You're choosing that some workplaces are going to start saying you can't work here anymore. And that's coming down the pipeline in Cayman. And I'm sorry, but QC Katina not going to be able to help you. She can't even find a job for herself, much less help you find a job. So, you guys, I feel like sometimes you need a dose of the cold, hard truth. And your politicians are kind of cuddling you softly. Yes, please go get vaccinated. I want you to get vaccinated. Well, I'm here to tell you, gosh darn it, go get vaccinated already. Oh, it's CCR Medical, not CMR Medical. That was a typo. Oh, good.
I was wondering about those
things.
I need to invest in your little company, Sandra. Just messing.
Right. So Tanisha says this is the only vaccine that gives you a choice. And in my opinion, that's because that's what caused that I'm fully vaccinated and I'm great. So yes, the only vaccine that gives you a choice. Isn't that interesting to think about? Anyway, folks, we are in a little bit of overtime. I've got a 10:30 meeting, Kev, that I've got to get to. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you this evening at 7:00. Folks, let's do Kevin's little promo just as a reminder.
On tonight's CMR COVID Spotlight, frontline healthcare workers will share their experience taking care of COVID patients. Watch on Cayman Marl Road's Facebook or YouTube page at 7 p.m. Cayman time. That's 8 Florida time.
All right. So Al says mandatory vaccination is criminal. Well, it's never been criminal before. And in fact, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled back in 1905 or some long time ago that it was entirely legal. And you've had it your entire life. So you tell me that all the other ones were criminal as well, or just this time around? I'm a little bit confused. So it is what it is, folks. Tune in this evening. We will see you guys at 7:00. Kevin, have a wonderful day.
All right. I'll see you all this evening. Take care.
All right, guys. Take care. And please be safe. And we'll continue to update you guys and anything that we get in terms of any additional breaking information with COVID. But the bottom line is you get a fighting chance if you're vaccinated. If you don't get vaccinated, then, you take what you get, really. Have a good day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.
All right, folks. Al pulled a fast one on me. He actually said, and of course I read it completely wrong, and he knew that would happen. He said mandatory vacation is criminal. And of course, Al Ray was like vacation, laughing out loud. Touche, Al. You caught me on that one. Mr. Blair, thank you. Love you too. Alice, we'll see you this evening. Charlene. So everyone, make sure you tune in. I'm going to go and Al, you're a little troublemaker. Al and others, I'm going to go now and book the show for this evening. So you can save the link from now. Anyway, guys, be good. And we'll see you this evening at 7:00.